Radio Mechanic here. In a previous video, I showed some modifications that I made to this ZD985 solder sucker, or vacuum desoldering station. And put it down at the end of the bench after I was finished and got to working on other things. And heard this metallic tink from that end of the bench and saw something flash in my peripheral vision. And by the time I'd snapped my head around and looked down there, everything seemed fine on that end of the bench. There's quite a bit of equipment down there. I had no idea what had occurred. Went back to work, heard that sound again, and my peripheral vision again, I saw this flash and snapped my head around. This time I got up, walked around that end of the bench, sniffed everything, poked and prodded, made sure everything was turned off, came over here, went back to work, heard that sound again. A little tink and this flash in my peripheral vision. So finally, I just stared down at that end of the bench for a few minutes, and sure enough, this guy, all of a sudden, the display flashed, and I heard that metallic tink sound, just like this. Did you see and hear that? Unfortunately, my heating plant is running in the background, but listen carefully, we'll do it again. And one more time. Now bear in mind, the unit is turned off. And no, the heating plant running has nothing to do with it. It does it whether it's the heating plant's running or not. I've checked my neutral and ground, and everything's fine. There's nothing wrong with the power coming in. It just does this occasionally. And it's got me curious as to why. Now I'm used to seeing this phenomenon with compact fluorescent lights if they're on a 2- or 3-way switch circuit, say in a hallway or a stairwell. There's enough capacitance in the wiring to slowly charge up the starting circuit and the compact fluorescent light, and eventually they'll put out a little burst or a little flash, and it's usually not visible unless you're in a darkened hallway at night or something. And occasionally you'll see the fluorescent lamp just dimly flash, and it's a fairly common phenomenon. But I'll be darned if I can come up with a scenario as why this would do it, because theoretically this off and on switch right here should break the hot connection on the line coming in, and there should be nothing in there to charge up. So let's take it apart and see what's going on. Now we have most of the screws out, and I'm going to continue on here. I suspect, or my suspicion is, that they have reversed the hot and the neutral lead on the wiring inside of here. Being as this is a Chinese vendor, and they don't pay a lot of attention to those types of things over there, I'm expecting to find that that's what the problem is. Let's pull it. Let's see here. Okay, a little bit of hot snot glue. I don't know if you can see that. Hole in the outlet, or the power connector in here. Yeah, that's fine, I guess. It seems solid enough. And where is, yes, there's the line. The line comes in on the brown. That color code's correct. The neutral is blue. That's correct. And let's see if we can get a look at the switch. And sure enough, it appears to me that they are switching the neutral side. Let's see if we can get a little bit closer. Get down in here and take a look. And I don't know if it's going to be visible on the camera or not. Try to steady things up a little bit here. They've got the switch contacts over here that are going to the transformer lead. This red wire goes off to the power supply. Here's the blue, which is the neutral, on that side of the switch. On the opposite side, they have the hot wire going just to make the indicator light come on. So it looks like I'm going to have to get in there and swap the wiring around in that switch to solve this problem. So let's do that. So we have the front panel removed now, and this little circuit board has the up and down and degree Fahrenheit or centigrade buttons. By pressing one button, temperature goes up or down, or you can change the display between centigrade and Fahrenheit. We have the microcontroller and display driver up here that controls our temperature and also drives our display. And here's the switch. You can see the neutral lead coming in on the side that's switched to the power supply, and the hot lead coming into the side just to provide the other or opposing voltage for the lamp, for the indicator. So what we're going to do is take this blue wire and this brown wire and reverse them so that we are indeed switching the hot circuit. What's happening here is the hot side is remaining hot all the time, obviously leaking voltage back into the power supply because we're switching the neutral side. So the hot side's always on, and we have a ground up here which is correctly connected, and it's likely there is just enough internal capacitance inside the power supply to cause the capacitors in there to slowly charge up over time and then suddenly discharge, and when it does, the power supply momentarily comes on and energizes the display unit. The vacuum pump's nicely mounted in rubber shock mounts to help knock the noise down. I kind of like that. But let's get into the wiring here. I'm going to cut this thing apart, and I won't bore you with that on video, and we'll see what happens. Okay, a little more investigation, and we've figured out what the problem is. I was wrong initially. The switch contacts do not operate from top to bottom. They operate from here to here and from here to here. This side has the lamp connected to it. Now if I wired this, I would have put the hot line here and the switched red line over here on the lamp side. That's neither here nor there. The switch is still doing its job correctly. It's disconnecting the hot lead from the power supply. So I'm standing here, or sitting here, scratching my head, wondering what the heck could be wrong. I know there's a switch swap somewhere between hot and neutral. Well, I took a look at the plug. The damn cord that came with this thing is wired wrong. I've never, ever seen this in one of these molded connectors before. If I go from ground to line on the cord that came with it, there's no voltage. If I go from ground to neutral, I have my 120 volts. I checked another one that's wired correctly, and sure enough, ground to line, the one that's marked L, has my 120. Ground to neutral is, of course, no voltage. You know, there's millivolts there, but that's just noise. So the damn cord that came with this thing is wired incorrectly. Thank God I didn't plug this into something else where it really mattered. There's some equipment where that could have had disastrous results. So I'm going to cut this cord up, throw it in the trash, put the heat shrink back on the connectors here. I'll have to take the wires off and slip a new piece of heat shrink on. By the way, they did a very nice job of correctly heat shrinking the wires. I would have liked to have seen slip-on connectors here, but that's neither here nor there. They did a very good job. Overall, the build quality on this thing, I'm very satisfied with what I'm seeing. It is, of course, built down to a price, and it's $150. I mean, you're not buying a $700 soldering station here. But for what I paid for it and the job that it does, I'm very, very, very pleased. I'm not very pleased about this, however, though. This drives me crazy, but I'm sure the manufacturer didn't build these themselves. I'm sure they're buying these from some company that makes power cords. But at any rate, I am going to chop this thing in half, throw it in the trash, or I'll at least cut the connector off the end of it here and use it just for a standard line cord. And we'll get this thing put back together and see if I've actually fixed it. Right, so the unit's back together. It's been sitting here with a correctly wired power cord for about an hour, and all seems well. No more mysterious flashing display. And again, I must reiterate, for the price I paid for this, I am extremely happy with the build quality. Again, it's not a professional level unit. I didn't buy a professional level unit. In fact, I've been getting by for years using one of these. This is basically a soldering iron that has one of those pumps built into it. And I picked this up on eBay a number of years ago, and it works okay. This definitely works better. It's a little more convenient to use. I don't have a reason or call to do a lot of desoldering these days, but this is the one I reach for now. I turn it on, let it warm up, and it's so convenient just to put the tip of the nozzle against the joint, pull the trigger. I am going to do a separate video on the power cord issue, and in fact I looked up the manufacturer. It's QIAPU, and I looked up, they have a website. It's the Ningbo, and I believe it's pronounced Guipu. My Chinese is not very good, but I believe it's Ningbo Guipu company. I'm going to drop them an email and see how they respond, and do a completely different video on this. So for now, the Radio Mechanic is going to sign off. Hope you found that informative. Remember, if you're having mysterious issues, check your power connector. Haven't seen this in the many years I've been doing this. Don't want to tell you how long that's been. Take care. So long.